Hi, welcome to Luxury Food Kitchen. Today we will be making fresh pasta. I'm going to show you how easy it is to make. So we use all-purpose flour, and usually we like to get maybe 1 cup of that in. And based on the flour that we use, you can either sift it or not. From this point, I'm going to make a little well in the middle of the bowl, crack a couple of eggs. I like to use organic eggs, but you can use anything. From this point, I'm just going to add the eggs to the center of the well and season a little bit of flour with a little pepper and salt. So easy. From this point, I'm just going to play, just maneuvering the eggs in the flour. I don't know if you can see that, but it's really fun. It's like therapeutic, man. So it's important not to overwork the dough, because if the dough is overworked, the texture of the pasta comes out really mushy, and we don't want that. We want a nice, firm texture of pasta. So you can see how I'm playing with it. And sometimes you may need to add more flour, or more eggs, or more water. It just depends on the texture you're looking for. We don't want anything too wet. So see how this is coming together quite well. I am going to add a little bit more flour because I think it needs a more dry texture. Okay, so at this point, it's coming together really well. We need to let the dough rest for about 20 minutes. So in doing this resting process, I'm just going to wet the dough a little bit and pick up the rest of the crumbs. And then I'm just going to leave it on the side, covering it with cling film. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to prep the ingredients for the sauce. We're going to do a nice, beautiful mushroom sauce today. So I have a portobello mushroom here and a little button mushroom. I like to remove the stalk and use it in the sauce. Just slice the mushrooms quite large. So the reason I have this fork in my mouth is because a friend of mine, Karishma, told me to put it in when I'm chopping onions, and I was crying. Okay, so the other ingredients for this recipe are bay leaves. These are fresh from Martinheira's home in Portugal. And I'm going to use coconut milk instead of cream because it's actually lighter and it tastes much better. So I'm going to bring this over to the pan. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to add some olive oil to the pan. And we're going to start to saute the mushrooms. Get some fire going. So the pan has to be relatively hot before we add the mushrooms in. Before we add the mushrooms in though, I'm going to saute the the shallot and the garlic. So in they go. Quite rustic. Now I don't like to wait for the pan to get hot because I like the garlic to infuse in the oil. And then once the infusion happens, we get all sorts of flavors going on. Now with bay leaves, they're a great asset in culinary technique because they impart such a good flavor and it's not too strong. So before I even like to use the bay leaf, I like to tear them. Oh, and then you can smell them, it's so lovely. And then I just chuck the bay leaves in. Okay, you can start to hear some sizzling sound going on. So we know that flavors are starting to get imparted. It's at this point I'm gonna add the mushrooms into the pan. And rustic is better, I feel. Like, you know, if you have too much uniform cuts, and it just takes away from that rustic feel. So, again, more salt. Never get too much. And then we just wait until all the mushrooms impart that beautiful flavor. So actually this sauteing can take like about 4 to 5 minutes. It really depends on how you cut the mushrooms. If you cut them larger, obviously it'll take longer. And I cut them quite large, so you can see the bulk has now reduced. So it's at this point, ladies and gentlemen, that I like to add a knob of butter because let's face it, butter is delicious. So you can see, I'm not shy with my butter. In it goes, maybe a bit more. And we allow the butter to melt into the mushrooms. Look at how beautiful that is. And that really imparts another depth of flavor that cannot be replicated if you use something else. All right, so now I'm very happy with the way they're looking. So at this point, the sauce is almost complete. I'm gonna use a little bit of coconut milk. Adding it in, look how beautiful, nice and creamy. Now remember, if you do have someone that's lactose intolerant, you don't need to use butter. You can use anything else like olive oil or sunflower oil. It just depends on your flavor preferences. Okay, so our sauce is actually pretty much ready. Nice rustic mushroom sauce. Let me taste it. Oh my God, that's so good. I'm gonna add a bit more salt and pepper. Okay, so I'm gonna just take that off the heat for now, and we're gonna roll out our pasta. Okay? Okay, so at this point we have to get our water ready because as soon as we roll out our pasta, we can cook it, okay? And it cooks in 2 minutes. So I'm just gonna get the pot ready with some hot water. And they say that the water should be as salty as the Mediterranean Sea. Because if the water's not salty, the pasta will taste devoid of flavor. So look how much salt I'm putting in here, guys. A lot. And that will really help the pasta, the flavors to melt. Okay, so now we can roll out the pasta. So, see, we're getting the dough and it's actually talking back to us, look. So we are now ready. The pasta's ready to be cooked. So I'm gonna bring it over to this side. So I think these are ready for me because they're floating. I'm just gonna try it just to make sure they're al dente. So, oh my God, yummy. So in the noodles go into our sauce. Okay, so now we're sauteing the noodles in our beautiful mushroom cream sauce. And I like to add some of the water that we use to cook the noodles in because it helps to thicken up the sauce. Let's get the rest in there. And I'm gonna finish the sauce with my favorite ingredient, which is a little bit of truffle oil. Look at that. So, I'm just gonna add a little bit of truffle oil. Yes, our mushroom truffle. You can finish off with a little coconut milk. Beautiful. I spin it one more time. Okay, so it's done. And I'm gonna try it. Wow, look at that. That's so good. So, happy cooking, and I hope to see you next time for our next dishes. Stay tuned to lovetruefood.com for more tips and tricks on cooking.